There's a moment in life when you realize something uncomfortable. Most people don't need to control your body to control your future. They just need to influence your emotions. And if your mindset isn't strong enough, you won't even notice it happening. Ever felt guilty for saying no, pressured to explain yourself, or pushed into choices that didn't feel like yours? That's not weakness, it's conditioning. A mind without discipline becomes predictable, and a predictable person becomes easy to manipulate. But once you break that pattern, once you build real self-development from the inside out, people around you start reacting differently, almost as if they don't know how to handle your silence anymore. And here's the twist. Manipulation rarely comes from bad people. It comes from people who learned how to read your fears, your patterns, your need to be liked, your habit of avoiding conflict. They pull the same emotional levers because they work. But imagine, just for a second, having such strong mental focus that these old triggers lose their effect. Imagine not being rushed, guilted, pressured, or boxed in because you no longer respond the way they expect. That's the level of personal growth we're aiming for today. A version of you that no one can predict or control, simply because you finally learned how to live better. So if you've ever felt drained by people who take more than they give, trapped in patterns you don't remember choosing, or frustrated with your own lack of boundaries, stay exactly where you are. What you're about to learn will upgrade your mindset, your time management, your discipline, and the way you navigate every relationship in your life. This isn't motivation. This is mental armor. And by the end of this video, the version of you that bends under pressure won't be the one walking out. Most people spend years running from discomfort and then wonder why their mindset feels fragile when life pushes back. But challenges were never the enemy. They were the training ground for real self-development. When someone finally realizes that hardship is not a punishment, but a tool for personal growth, everything shifts. The mind works like a muscle. If it's not stressed, it stays weak, predictable, and easily broken. And once you see challenges as opportunities instead of threats, your mental focus begins to transform in ways that surprise even you. Think about anyone who built unshakable discipline and productivity. None of them did it by choosing the easy path. David Goggins is the clearest example. He didn't turn into a symbol of extreme personal growth because life was kind to him. He became who he is because he walked straight into pain when everyone else avoided it. His story shows that resistance, physical or emotional, rewires the brain for resilience, clarity, and stronger time management. And whether or not you ever plan to run an ultramarathon, the principle is the same. Discomfort shapes people into something harder to manipulate or break. The truth is, every moment of struggle is secretly teaching you something about your own power. When someone chooses to face a difficult conversation, finish a hard workout, or take responsibility instead of blaming circumstances, they're strengthening a part of themselves that comfort could never touch. These experiences build a mindset that doesn't collapse when pressure rises. They teach you how to live better by embracing the reality that pain teaches faster than pleasure ever will. And once you taste this kind of inner strength, it's impossible to go back to who you were. If you've ever wondered why certain people stay calm under pressure while others fall apart, it's because one learned to lean into discomfort while the other spent years avoiding it. The person who grows becomes mentally heavier, harder to push, harder to predict, harder to manipulate. They develop a quiet confidence that doesn't need to announce itself because it's built on earned experience. This is where real personal growth begins, in the decision to stop running. And once someone steps into that mindset, the next shift becomes unavoidable. If someone wants real self-development, the first step isn't adding new habits. It's removing the ones silently destroying their productivity and mental focus. And the biggest one is complaining. Complaining keeps you emotionally trapped because every time you blame something outside of you, you give away your power. A strong mindset doesn't waste energy narrating problems. It directs energy toward changing them. And when a problem truly can't be changed, discipline means accepting it and moving forward anyway. Comfort is the second trap, maybe the most dangerous one. People think comfort is the reward for good time management, but in reality, too much comfort eliminates the pressure that triggers personal growth. When someone always picks the easy route, they unknowingly build a fragile identity that breaks the moment life gets loud. To build mental strength, they need small doses of chosen discomfort, waking up earlier, finishing the task they've been avoiding, or having that hard conversation with honesty. Growth never comes wrapped in a warm blanket. The third trap is excuses. Excuses feel logical, even protective, but they're nothing more than elegant stories the brain tells to avoid responsibility. They sabotage productivity and reinforce the belief that I can't, when the truth is usually I won't. A person who wants real personal growth learns to call out their own excuses with kindness and clarity. A useful practice is journaling, writing down the excuse, writing the truth underneath, and choosing the action that aligns with who they want to become. Simple, direct, transformative. Together, these three habits, complaining, comfort seeking, and excuse making, create the perfect storm for stagnation. Anyone stuck in them ends up easy to control, predictable, and emotionally reactive. But the moment they stop feeding these patterns, the mind begins to stabilize and strengthen in ways they didn't expect. And once this foundation is set, they're finally ready to build daily practices that reinforce discipline and mental resilience. Mental strength isn't built through inspiration, it's built through repetition. Daily habits are the backbone of self development, and they quietly shape your mindset far more than motivation ever will. Cold showers, for example, are a practical way to train discipline. Your body screams no, but your mind learns to say go. That moment rewires your brain for resilience and better time management because you're proving to yourself that discomfort doesn't control you. And once you win that first battle each morning, everything else feels lighter. Physical exercise is another non negotiable. People forget how deeply the body and mind are connected. Strengthen one, and the other naturally follows. A consistent workout routine improves mental focus, emotional stability, and overall productivity. It doesn't need to be extreme. 20 minutes of strength training, a brisk walk, or a simple mobility session can completely shift your personal growth trajectory. The important part is consistency, not intensity. Small, daily wins compound faster than people realize. Meditation is the habit most people underestimate, but it's the one that anchors every other part of your life. It teaches your mind to pause before reacting, to think before collapsing into old patterns. Meditation creates space to choose, space to respond, space to breathe. For beginners, even 5 minutes can improve mindset clarity and internal discipline. Over time, the brain becomes less reactive, more focused, and far harder to manipulate emotionally. That's the kind of stability modern life rarely gives you. And then there's the simplest habit of all. Do something difficult every single day. It could be learning a new skill, doing an extra set at the gym, reading 10 pages when you feel tired, or waking up 30 minutes earlier. These small acts teach your brain that it can handle more than it thinks. When this becomes a lifestyle, personal growth accelerates, and you start noticing how much stronger, calmer, and sharper you feel. And soon, controlling your emotions under pressure becomes the next natural step. Most people believe emotional control is about suppressing feelings, but the strongest minds know it's really about creating space between stimulus and response. That tiny pause is where discipline, clarity, and self-development actually happen. When pressure hits, an argument, a deadline, a fear, you don't have to react instantly. You can give your brain a moment to catch up with your values instead of your impulses. And that's where real mental focus begins to grow. A simple practice is this. When triggered, stop, inhale slowly, and count to 5. It sounds almost childish, yet it's one of the most powerful tools in time management and emotional mastery. Those 5 seconds interrupt the automatic loop of anger, anxiety, or defensiveness. They pull you out of survival mode and into intentional action. Think of it like installing a mental circuit breaker, one that prevents emotional overload from burning down your productivity. When someone understands that emotions behave like waves, rising, peaking, and falling, they stop being afraid of them. Fear, frustration, guilt, and stress lose their power when you realize they're temporary visitors, not permanent residents. A strong mindset doesn't eliminate negative emotions, it simply refuses to let them dictate behavior. One practical tip: name what you're feeling out loud. This is frustration. This is fear. Naming the emotion shifts it from the body to the mind, which is where you regain control. Over time, this emotional discipline becomes a quiet superpower. It makes you harder to manipulate, harder to predict, and far more resilient under pressure. You become the kind of person who stays grounded when everyone else is unraveling. And once you learn to stand steady in your emotions, embracing failure becomes not just possible, but essential for the next phase of your personal growth. Most people treat failure like a personal flaw, when in reality, it's the tuition you pay for self development. A strong mindset understands that failure isn't a dead end, it's feedback. Every misstep, every attempt that falls short, every plan that collapses is silently building discipline and mental focus. If you're never failing, you're not really trying. You're just protecting your comfort zone and calling it stability. Failure teaches lessons that success never will. It exposes weak processes, sloppy time management, and emotional blind spots that you wouldn't notice otherwise. If someone starts a new skill, learning guitar, lifting weights, studying a language, they're not failing because they're bad. They're failing because they're building neural pathways. The brain grows through stress and repetition, and the faster you detach your identity from the outcome, the faster your personal growth accelerates. A practical way to embrace failure is to run weekly experiments. Try something you've avoided. Pitch an idea, start a side project, post your first video, or ask for feedback from someone you respect. Then, evaluate the result without judgment. This habit trains your mindset to see failure as useful information, not emotional proof of inadequacy. Over time, you become braver, more resilient, and less reactive to the opinions of others. The only real failure is quitting. Everything else is data. When you internalize this truth, you become harder to manipulate emotionally because people lose the ability to shame you into staying small. You start walking into challenges with confidence instead of hesitation. And once failure becomes a tool instead of a threat, your attitude toward life transforms into something unshakable. A life lived on autopilot reacts to everything. A life built with intention responds with clarity. That's the essence of an unshakable mindset. When someone finally understands that life is 20% what happens and 80% how they interpret it, their self-development accelerates in ways they never imagined. Reframing problems becomes a form of personal power. Obstacles stop feeling like threats and start feeling like tests designed to sharpen discipline. And that shift alone raises your mental focus beyond the reach of everyday chaos. Emotional control at a higher level is not about being cold, it's about being conscious. When pressure rises, step back mentally and look at the situation from a logical distance. The same way a strategist studies a battlefield instead of rushing into it. This is the emotional maturity that turns productivity into something calm, steady, and predictable. When you think this way, you become harder to read, harder to provoke, and far less vulnerable to manipulation. People sense that grounded presence, even if you never mention it. A strong attitude also comes from understanding the difference between pain and suffering. Pain is part of life. Suffering is the resistance to what is happening. When you embrace reality instead of fighting it, your time management, your discipline, and even your personal growth become lighter. Many people don't realize how much mental weight they carry simply because their mind is disorganized. That's why learning to reset your thoughts and reorganize your week is so important. It's the exact kind of system I explore deeply in the digital hangover system, a practical blueprint for anyone who feels mentally overloaded and wants to regain control without burning out. It gives structure to the strength you're building here. And then there's the mindset that seals everything. Nothing can break me. I may bend, but I don't crack. When someone repeats this, not as a mantra of ego, but of resilience, their identity shifts. They stop negotiating with fear and start negotiating with their future. This is the kind of attitude that makes you unpredictable, unmanipulable, and mentally heavy in the best way. And once this identity is formed, a natural question emerges. How does someone turn discipline into their primary source of power? Motivation is exciting, but it's also unreliable. like a friend who only shows up when the weather is good. Discipline, on the other hand, is the force that carries your self development when your energy drops, when life feels heavy, or when your mindset starts to doubt itself. The strongest people aren't the ones who feel inspired. They're the ones who do the work, even when inspiration is nowhere to be found. Productivity becomes stable when discipline becomes non negotiable. That's when personal growth stops depending on mood and starts depending on character. A disciplined life is built on systems, not wishes. Goals can motivate you for a moment, but systems carry you for a lifetime. A person who commits to exercising 5 times a week, reading 10 pages every day, or checking their priorities each morning creates a structure where progress becomes automatic. Time management feels less like a battle and more like a rhythm. And ironically, the more disciplined you become, the more freedom you actually feel because your actions are aligned with who you want to be, not with whatever emotion shows up. Small daily actions might look insignificant, but they're the silent architects of mental strength. Every time you honor a commitment, waking up on time, finishing a task, choosing focus over distraction, you're reinforcing a mindset that says, I can trust myself. That trust compounds. This is how discipline becomes a form of self respect. If you want a practical example, try establishing a non negotiable list. 3 things you will do every single day, no matter what. Over weeks, this list becomes the backbone of your personal growth. When someone finally understands that mastering discipline is essentially mastering life, everything changes. Their emotions stop dictating their behavior. Their productivity stops relying on motivation spikes. Their mental focus sharpens to a level that almost feels unfair compared to their old self. And once discipline becomes a lifestyle, steady, intentional, and non negotiable, a deeper question naturally emerges, one that prepares your mind for the final step of this transformation. At the end of the day, none of this matters if it stays as theory. A strong mindset isn't built by watching videos. It's built by applying the life lessons that hit you the hardest. So ask yourself right now, what's one pattern you refuse to repeat? What's one boundary you're finally ready to enforce? And what's the first situation in your life where you're going to stop being predictable and start being unshakable? Because you have 2 choices. Go back to the behaviors that made you easy to read, easy to control, easy to manipulate, or decide that today is the day you upgrade your discipline, your self-development, and your mental focus. Your future self is already waiting on the other side of that decision. The only question is whether you're willing to take the first step. If this video pushed you in the right direction, subscribe and turn on notifications. This channel exists to help you learn how to live better, one idea at a time. And before you leave, there's one more step in this transformation. You can't build a strong mind if your internal world is chaotic. That's why your next stop is the video on your screen, the time management lie that's been ruining your life for years. You learned how to protect your mind. Now it's time to reclaim your time. Stay quiet, stay sharp, stay in progress.